Good evening to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a few announcements and then we'll begin. Our first song this evening is going to be number 898. 898. Paradise Valley. We're going to review our prayer list. We added a few to that this morning. If you happen to pick up a bulletin, we have Oline Burwell, Betty Scarber in the nursing home, and we continue to remember Frank Blansett, Joni Erb, Joe and Danita Harger, Janice Parks, Lily Mae Ray, Karen Tigert, and James Wade. And also new this week was Monica Whithurst, that's Johnny Sue's daughter. She's been diagnosed with lung cancer, and she has an appointment on Thursday with an oncologist. And then we'd also received gotten a message this morning. Jean has an appointment at Conway Regional Hospital for a couple of scans to consider what kind of treatment that they want to go forward with there. And I think that's on the 28th, July the 28th. And then also Francis Turner. We had requests for Francis Turner. And then Kenneth Clara Westmoreland, prayers needed for Clara's sister in Garland, Texas, Lois Vaden. She's in the hospital with heart-related issues. And also prayer requests for Raymond Westmoreland. He has an appointment Thursday after hip surgery. And so we had those that we mentioned. Any others that we want to include this evening? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 97. Okay, Jim Barham, former minister at Havana Church of Christ, now Western Yale. All right, thank you. And we also, it was mentioned that Joni's granddaughter, that's Louis and Hannah's daughter, has had RSV. She's getting better at this point. But that seems to be something that a lot of young people, very young people, are having at this particular time. All right. So 898, Paradise Valley. For us, our first prayer this evening. Wayne, thank you. 898. As I travel through life with its trouble and strife, I've glorious hope to give cheer on the way. Soon my toil will be o'er, and I'll rest on that shore where the night has been turned into day. Up in the beautiful Paradise Valley by the side of the river of life. In the valley, the wonderful valley, will be free from all pain and all strife. There we shall live in the rose-scented garden, neath the shade of the evergreen tree. How I long for the Paradise Valley, where the beauty of heaven I'll see. As I roam the hillside, or listen to the tide, as I pluck the sweet flowers that grow in the dale, a faint picture is there of a land bright and fair, where perennial flowers never fail. Up in the beautiful Paradise Valley by the side of the river of life. Up in the valley, the wonderful valley, will be free from all that bloom in the garden above, in the midst of it grows. Sharon's perfect sweet rose, 'tis a wonderful flower of love. Up in the beautiful Paradise Valley, by the side of the river of life. Up in the valley, the wonderful valley, we'll be free from all pain and all strife. There we shall live in the rose-tinted garden, neath the shade of the evergreen tree. How I long for the Paradise Valley, where the beauty of heaven I'll see.
Would you pray with me, please? Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. It's not good to come together again, worship you and sing songs of praise and learn more about your word. Father, we thank you for this beautiful weather we've been having. It's really look cool and comfortable and wet. We thank you, Father, for the having a preference for relief for those areas that are dry and very hot, warm weather. Father, thank you for everything you do for us each and every day. You provide so much that many times we take for granted. Pray you forgive us for that. Father, I pray that you be those that are sick, those that have been mentioned that we've been asked to pray for. We lift them up, Father, and pray that you would heal them if it be your will. Father, I pray you watch over us in this service. Pray that we focus our minds on you. With Rick as he continues to lead our songs. And pray with Jim as he brings us our message. Thank you for your son, Jesus, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Number 957. 957. This world is not my home. This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. They're all expecting me, and that's one thing I know. My Savior pardoned me, and now I outward go. I know He'll take me through, though I am weak and poor, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Just up in glory land we'll live eternally. The saints on every hand are shouting victory. Their song of sweetest praise drifts back from heaven's shore, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. Oh Lord, you know I have no friend like you. If heaven's not my home, then Lord, what will I do? The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. 959. 959. Just a little talk with Jesus. I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in, and the little light of heaven filled my soul. It bathed my heart in love and wrote my name above, and just a little talk with Jesus made me whole. Had a little talk with Jesus, tell him all about our troubles. Hear our faintest cry, he will answer by fears, my eyes be filled with tears. But Jesus is a friend who watches day and night. I go to him in prayer, he knows my every care. And just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Now let us have a little talk with Jesus. Let us tell him all about our sorrows. He will hear our faintest cry, and he will answer by and by. When you feel a little prayerful yearning as your heart to heaven is turning, you will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. You will turn your markers songbooks to number 948. I am resolved, number 948.
Good evening. Good to see everyone. I tell you what, we get bonus points tonight. Everyone is over here. Although I did see Bob was a little dismayed. He came in here and all the good seats were already taken in the back. So, you got to get here early to get the good seats in the back. But anyway, it's good to be here. I don't know how many of y'all have already ate supper. Is that one of your burgers there, Steve? It's to be a snack. Well, that's probably what it is. Well, anyway, our lesson tonight, you can go ahead and turn your Bibles, you want to, 2 Kings. We're going to do a series on Sunday nights. But we're going to do a series on Sunday nights on prophets of the Bible. And for the most part, they're going to be from the Old Testament. There is at least a couple in the New Testament, and we'll eventually get them as well. But we're going to stick with prophets. And the theme's going to be a double portion, but we're going to look at Elisha first in 2 Kings 2. But yeah, that looks appetizing. When you talk about a lot of food and consuming that, there is, and you got to like folks. He was a civil engineer by profession as far as studies, and so you got to like them civil engineers. But he went into a field where he is worth multi-million dollars now, and you've got to like this too. He makes money eating food, and his name is Joey Chestnut. And maybe you watched on July the 4th of this year. He ate 76 hot dogs and buns in just 10 minutes, breaking his own world record. Impressive. And he's not as big as you would think he is. I mean, it takes dedication, it takes effort. And I mean, I tell you what, where was this profession when I was younger? And so anyway, I don't know how you do that. There has to be something just wrong with his anatomy for him to be able to get that kind of food. Well, anyway, so I thought, he does more than just eat hot dogs, but that's the big, that's the big event every year. But he has a lot of world records. And some of these world records, I want to tell you, just really amaze me. How many of y'all have ever seen the movie Cool Hand Luke? And you remember in it, Paul Newman he makes this bet where he's going to eat 50 hard-boiled eggs in an hour. Joey Chestnut has the world record for hard-boiled eggs. He ate 141 hard-boiled eggs in 8 minutes. Whoa. I don't know that I want to be around him after eating that many eggs. But anyway, he ate 12 pounds of deep-fried asparagus. Asparagus is good, but 12 pounds in 10 minutes. He's well-rounded. 55 glazed donuts in 8 minutes. Maybe at least the first two were probably enjoyable. Now, here's some, Steve. Some of this gets expensive, though, if you think about it. It's a good thing to have these challenges. 13.76 pounds of pork rib meat. Now, what they do is they weigh it before, and then what's left on the bone, they weigh afterwards. So he ate just the meat, 13.76 pounds of that in 12 minutes. Here's one. It just doesn't seem right, Steve. I don't know how many orders it takes for you to go through this amount, but he ate 9 pounds, 6 ounces of pulled pork barbecue in 10 minutes. Don't ever let him in your place, Steve, if it's a challenge involved, is all I'm going to say. Like I say, you got to love the fact that he does a little bit of everything. 121 Twinkies in 6 minutes. I wonder how much water that took to down that many Twinkies. So, and like I say, today I think is National Ice Cream Day. He ate 25.25 full-size ice cream sandwiches in just 6 minutes. Now, that is impressive. I don't know. So, Megan, now, by the way, they have women's competitions in this as well, and you know, you'd be surprised. Some of the women that hold the world records are not really that big. So, you may have something you can make some money in one of these days. Anyway, so, but a double portion. Obviously, I believe that what he eats is more than a double portion. But, you know, back in the day, you know, you'd be hungry and you'd eat a lot, or you'd want to, you know, extra work and whatever. Maybe you needed the money. But what double portion are you thinking about? And so these prophets, they desired more. Now, sometimes it was thrust upon them, but they accepted the challenge. And here we have Elisha. Remember, Elisha was a farmer, had done a pretty good living, had, 12 yoke of oxen when Elijah first comes to him. And yet, he left it behind. He not left it behind, he burned, he sacrificed his oxes, and the implements of the yoke, he used that for the fire. He was never going back. A double portion. So we're going to look at a double portion requires dedication, it requires big dreams, and it requires responsibility. So, dedication. One of the things that we did just about everything you could fit into about 4 days when we went to D.C. the last time. But one thing we didn't get to do, we just ran out of steam. I mean, you see, by the way, on TV, all these different memorials and monuments, and you can see them from one to another just about, and they look like they're close. You know, this is one of the things, a lot of times TV makes things look bigger, but in the case of D.C., it makes it look smaller. And these things are a long ways off, and really, you've got to pretty much walk from place to place. And so we didn't make it to the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington. And the changing of the guard. And even through COVID, through snow, through heat, through rain, they march. And by the way, it's a very prestigious honor to be one of these people, and you have to do special training for it. But no matter what the elements, they march at this site. And then every so many, I think, couple hours, there is a changing of the guard, and it's a big ornate ceremony. But we understand to be a soldier requires dedication. To be a police officer, a firefighter, to all these things require dedication. To be a world-class athlete, the Olympics are about upon us, and those people have dedication. What about as Christians? What about as people of God? What dedication do you have? Now we come to the end of Elijah's time on earth. He will not die in the conventional sense that people die. He's going to be taken up in a whirlwind. And so 2 Kings 2, verses 1 through 4, it says, "Now when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven by a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. And Elijah said to Elisha, 'Please stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel.' But Elisha said, 'As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you.' So they went down to Bethel. And the sons of the prophets who were in Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, 'Do you know that today the Lord will take away your master from over you?' And he said, 'Yes, I know it. Keep quiet.' Elijah said to him, 'Elisha, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho.' But he said, as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So they came to Jericho. So Elijah apparently knows what's going on, and Elisha just wants to stay near him. And Elijah keeps trying to convince him just to stay there. Elisha says, I'm not leaving you. Now, something that Elijah knows that Elisha doesn't know, or at least we have no indication that he knows, is the fact that Elijah had been revealed to the fact that Elisha would be the prophet that would basically take his place when he left. But here we see that Elisha wants to stay to his mentor close as possible. In verse 5 it says, the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho, different group, drew near to Elisha and said to him, do you know that today the Lord will take away your master from over you? And he answered, yes, I know it, keep quiet. It had to irritate him. Elisha was the one that was probably the closest to Elijah during this transition, and yet these were trying to tell him, hey, look what we know. I already know it. Then Elijah said to him, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. But he said, as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. 50 men of the sons of the prophets also went and stood at some distance from them, as they both were standing by the Jordan. Then Elijah took his cloak and rolled it up and struck the water. And the water was parted to the one side and to the other, till the two of them could go over on dry ground. Now, what's amazing and impressive about this, you remember, Moses parted the Red Sea, and the Israelites went through there. And of course, later on, when they crossed the Jordan, and with Joshua, once again, the Jordan River there is parted. And here, Elisha takes his mantle, rolls it up, touches the water, and it parts on him. Let's keep that in mind. But it is interesting. Elijah keeps giving him the opportunity to stay. Stay behind. Stay behind. I've got to go here, but you stay here. Elijah says, no, wherever you go, I'm going to go. And you notice that these sons of the prophets, they would fall away, and yet they did not go any farther. If Elijah did not want Elisha going, he could have said, no, I must do this alone. And I think it shows the dedication, the heart of Elisha, that he was going to be with Elijah as much as he could in the short period of time that he could. And so he went. He witnessed this miracle. He walked across the dry ground. And these are going to be the last moments of Elijah on this earth. What dedication do we have? 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. We often talk about things like, the plan of salvation, and that's good. And we talk about, how you become a Christian. But, sometimes we don't focus enough on the dedication it requires to remain faithful in Christ. And there's all kinds of things along the way they'll say, you stay here. And you're like, no, I know I need to go on. 2 Peter 3, verse 13 through 14, of course, after Peter talks about the fact that everything we know is going to be dissolved, he says, but according to his promise, we are waiting for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. Therefore, beloved, since you are waiting for these, be diligent to be found by him without spot or blemish and at peace. We know the end result. Our effort should be to be dedicated to the cause of Christ. Now, what we see is Elijah was going to leave. We know that one day the Lord will come again, and all that we know will be gone. We must be diligent. We must be dedicated. How dedicated are you to Christ? In 2 Peter 1, 4 through 9, it kind of gives us a mechanism of things that we must devote ourselves to. And if we're dedicated in these, we know that everything's going to be okay for us. And so these are maybe a checklist of things that on a daily basis we need to say, let's work on these things. By working on these things, we will fulfill our dedication requirements, by which He has granted to us His precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire. For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue. So your faith in Jesus Christ, with virtue, with being a pious person, a person devoted to God, and virtue with knowledge. So we need to read and study. And knowledge with self-control. Self-control with steadfastness, steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they keep you from being ineffective or unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For whoever lacks these qualities is so nearsighted that he is blind, having forgotten that he was cleansed from his former sins. So if we want to be dedicated, we must show our dedication. If we want to receive a double portion like Elisha received, then we must constantly do these things so we never forget where we come from. We all were once lost in sin, and we all have had our sins washed away, those of us as Christians, and we continue to move forward to get as far away from the way we were when we were lost in our old man of sin. So we see that a double portion requires dedication. It requires effort. It requires consistency, practice, on and on and on. To receive that double portion, though, it also requires big dreams. Sometimes I think, when we're young, we have big dreams. I don't know about Hayden now, but, he used to want to be Spider-Man. I think that's a great dream to have. Somewhere we lose things like that. We no longer want to be Spider-Man. We just worried about paying our bills. We're worried about, going to work and doing all these things, washing, getting the clothes washed, getting the house clean, taking the car to get oil, whatever list or whatever the litany of things may be. And it's so refreshing, when you're around kids, because I love graduation time, because that is the height, the pinnacle of probably anybody's dreams in their life. What do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be president. I want to be, whatever that list may be. And it's before life has beaten most of them down into where they realize, that's not going to be me. And then they settle into something, and not that anything's bad with that. But sometimes then as we get our trajectory and we kind of do this number, we lose the ability to dream big. One of the things I like, people have asked me at different times, what commentary series would you recommend for this book or that book? And one of the things I can generally recommend for most Christians, that are not going to a school trying to be necessarily scholars, is pretty much you can get any of the books from Burton Kaufman. And they are just, pretty much level. They may not go into the scholarly look like some do, but I want to tell you, they're good commentaries. But something about Burton Kaufman that amazes me when I heard it, he is one of the very, very, very few people that have ever written a full commentary on every single book of the Bible. Took him 30 years. Actually, 31. He was 65 when he started. So I don't know what ages you are here, but what are you going to do with your life? Where are you at? What big dreams do you have? And we need to stop this mentality of that once we get a certain age, we don't need to dream anymore. We can have big dreams. What big dreams do you have? In 2 Kings verses 9 through 10 in chapter 2, it says, when they crossed the Jordan, that is, Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I shall do for you before I'm taken from you. And Elisha said, please let there be a double portion of your spirit on me. And he said, you have asked a hard thing. Yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if you do not see me, it shall not be so. A double portion. When I was young, and I think I even heard sometimes people allude to this, that Elisha, wanted to be twice that of Elijah. That's not what he's asking. And the fact is, he does see him, as we know. And so, in essence, he was granted this wish. But, he was indeed a great prophet, one of the mightiest prophets to ever walk this earth. But at best, you could say he was really close to what Elijah wasn't quite. By the way, if you're wondering how you can rank these things, who was at the Mount of Transfiguration? And it was Elijah, not Elisha. But what does it mean? What does this mean that he wants a double portion? And why would it be hard? Well, this double portion, it alludes to something that was in the law of Moses, but yet it was tradition and custom in many of the places, like the Ur of the Chaldeans and in those areas. The law of the land was such that the eldest child received a double portion. In the law of Moses, Deuteronomy 21:17, it says, "But he shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the unloved," deals with if he has multiple wives. But yet here it says, "by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the firstfruits of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his." What is this right of the firstborn? Well, it does include extra, but it also had a responsibility portion. You see, I don't know when, sometime during the Depression era, we started something called Social Security. Some of you in this audience probably live off of, or at least have some type of sustenance off of Social Security. I'm not knocking that. But what about before? What did people do? They just... Who took care of them? The families did they not? And you go back to Bible times, they didn't have Social Security, but families took care of them. And so this law, this double portion, it was important because what it did was the firstborn would receive a double portion of the inheritance. Why? We see that extra portion wasn't so they could be richer than the others. It was so they would then take care of the parents. He said they would give their inheritance before the parents died. And so, in essence, the firstborn that had this double portion, it was his duty to take care of his parents. And that extra portion was so he could afford to do so. So yes, indeed, you did get something special from it, but you had a responsibility. So what is it that Elisha is asking? He says, "Elijah, I want a double portion of your spirit." There were other prophets, as we see. They ran across others as they went to this last journey of Elijah walking on this earth. Elisha wants to be the next. Wants to be the one, the main prophet of Israel. He wants to have that responsibility. And it is that aspect that Elijah says, "You have asked a hard thing." Look at Elijah's life. He was on the run at times. Jezebel wanted to kill him, and he had these conflicts and other things, and he had to go to the kings, and he had to tell them bad news, and Elisha would have to tell kings bad news as well, because both of them would be concentrated with talking to the northern kings. Elisha said, "That's what I want. I want to be like you, Elijah. I want to be a man of God the best I can." You look at the patriarchs, they each all had big dreams. Although their dreams would never be fulfilled while they was alive. Hebrews 11:13 through 16 says, "These all died in faith, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had the opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city." I want to tell you, really in a church, in a congregation, there needs to be two classes of people. And I'm talking about especially of the men, but even in the women. There needs to be one class of people who are the mentors, who are the Elijahs, who have, by their faith, exhibited that they are devout people, that they have done things, they have had experiences, and they have a breadth of knowledge to share. And they must be eager to share that and to teach the younger. And then there needs to be a category of people who look up to them, the Elishas, and they need to be encouraged to dream. Don't just limit yourself to doing exactly what that person did, but have that same responsibility and possibly go beyond. A church like Heritage Edition has a large history, and a lot of that history is based on leadership continuing. I look forward to us getting our young back involved again and doing things. I've loved, in fact, I told Barron, I love the fact that he has a keen interest in back there. I told him he's going to have a long drive in the next few weeks because we're going to need him every Sunday, and so he's going to have a long drive from Lubbock all the way back here to Boonville every single Sunday, but we'll make do. In fact, I recruited another kid this morning, so, But there's other things. Wednesday nights, we've been trying to get some to lead singing and stuff. We need to get our young back involved. We need to encourage them to dream big. I want to tell you, though, we have members of our own congregation that have been members 2, 3, 4 decades. They need to understand they can still dream big. Dream big. When Burton Kaufman started his commentary series, I've read some of that. It's kind of like, I can imagine Noah, when he started building the ark. They say, Noah, what you doing? I'm building a boat. Shouldn't you put it near the water? It's going to be a flood. Burton Kaufman started writing his commentary series, 65. He retired from full-time preaching and started, well, Burton, what you going to do retirement? I'm going to write a commentary series on every single book of the Bible. You go ahead. Yeah, when he turned 96, he had finished that. I want to tell you, the church needs people with big dreams, willing to take on big responsibilities. And ultimately, that's what we're talking about. It's easy to have the dreams. But when you pair it with dedication, you have something. But ultimately, it requires responsibility. We need people willing to be here, do things, and to truly put the work of the church first and foremost. What responsibilities? As we continue in verse 11, it says, And as they still went on and talked, behold, chariots of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw them no more. What an emotional experience that must have been. What an awesome experience it must have been. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them in 2 pieces. Even though Elijah didn't die in the conventional sense, Elijah would no longer be part of this earth, and he was gone. And Elisha mourned that. And he took up the cloak of Elijah. Now this had meaning. They had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Elisha, it's up to you now. He took the cloak of Elijah and fallen from him and struck the water, saying, Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah? And when he had struck the water was parted, the one side and the other, and Elisha went over. His request was fulfilled. Now he would be the prophet. Now he would be the one that would go to the kings. He would be the one that, as Elijah was labeled troubler of Israel, Elisha too the kings would say, never gave him good news. He'd be the one that foreign people like Naaman would come to say, heal me of my leprosy. And so mighty was he as a prophet, he didn't have to talk to the person. He could tell them what to do, and if the person did it, they'd be healed. responsibility. Jesus says in Matthew 16, 24 through 27, then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what would it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? What shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels and the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he has done. You know, countless scriptures throughout the Bible deal with each and every one of us. We're not going to be judged on what brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so did, what our parents did, what our children will do. We're going to be judged based on what we've done with what God has given us. Yes, indeed, some people have much more talent. I always enjoy when Rick leads singing. He does an excellent job. And yet all of our song leaders do an excellent job. You see, it's not about comparing. Our men that say prayers, they do a wonderful job. Our people that teach Bible classes, they do an excellent job. But it's not a comparison thing of, does this one do this better or that better? They're judged by their own standard. Did they do the best they could? Have they dedicated themselves to do what they can? Have they inspired themselves to do better maybe the next time? And have they taken a responsibility to continue to do it? We all must be like Elisha and want that double portion. I want to challenge us here today. And next year we're going to start this life of Christ, and a lot of things, opportunities are going to be there. But I want you to challenge yourself. What more can you aspire to be? I don't care what your age. Let's see, how old is Hayden here? Huh? 7. From 7 till, well, I'm not going to go there, but anyway, however old you are, or however young you are, I want you to dream big. I want you to dedicate yourself. And I want you to take some new responsibility, something more. One of the things I did, and don't get me wrong, I failed a lot of things, but one thing that I've done pretty good for me so far this year is I have kept up with the daily Bible reading. I hope you are doing some of that too. It is an amazing process to do this. And it's going to be such a neat thing to have this year after year now. All this extra work I'm doing, it was a responsibility I took. What can you do? Now, what I do is not what you can do. Some things you can do far greater than me. Maybe it's writing notes to people. I know some people are great at that. Maybe you're going to up your game on writing a note to someone. Maybe you're going to do better at calling people and seeing how they're doing. Maybe it's, whatever it may be. Maybe you want to start teaching a Bible class. Maybe you want to start doing this, start doing that. Whatever it is, I want to challenge you today to be like Elisha and ask God for a double portion. Ask God to challenge you that you may do more. That won't be easy. It will be a burden. It will be a responsibility that will be you. But God expects this. Think about the ones with the talents. The 5 talent, the 2 talent, and the 1 talent. The 5 talent, the 2 talent, they grew their talents. The 1 talent did not. God expects us to become more. And with Christ, we can do all things. Don't know where you are, but if you're not a Christian, I want to tell you that always becomes the first and greatest step. Paul was told that there's an urgency to the matter. Why are you waiting? Rise and be baptized and wash away your sins. Acts 22:16. Or maybe you hear and maybe you started off good as a Christian and you kind of Maybe you hit a plateau. Maybe you even kind of went down. Maybe you reverted back to your old man. Whatever it may be, if you have any needs at all, we urge you and plead with you, come now. Together we stand and sing.
Things that are higher, things that are nobler, these have allured my sight. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. I am resolved to enter the kingdom, leaving the paths of sin. Friends may oppose me, foes may beset me, still will I enter in. I will hasten to him, hasten so glad and free. Jesus, greatest, highest, I will come to thee. You turn to number 991. We'll sing the first verse as we close. Number 991, This Is My Father's World. And following this song, would someone lead a prayer for us? Word of prayer. Steve, thank you. First verse. This is my Father's world.